Hi guys, I am here with Austin FC's finest MoonTower Soccer podcast, Landon and Jeremiah. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having us, Tom.
Yeah, we're doing great. Just happy to be here and looking forward to sharing the message of Austin FC.
Absolutely. Yeah, Austin's been one I've been wanting to get to for a long while because it comes up very, very well in the sort of objective MLS fans view of fans. Austin come very, very high. So I would definitely want to get into the fan groups and the fan culture in a little bit. But tell people a little bit about what you do, what MoonTower Soccer is, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think the role we fill in the Austin FC media landscape is kind of the more nerdy, analytical, like match breakdown, player scouting kind of area. We try to have fun as much as we can as well, but that's kind of the niche that we fill, and we've been doing it for I keep forgetting how long, but significantly longer than the team has existed. We covered the team for a good year and a half before they ever kicked a ball. And so we've been around from the beginning and have really enjoyed being a part of this community as it's grown.
Yeah, that the research is a lot easier now, right? Because like in the old days, we would be reading meeting notes from homeowners association meetings in the neighborhood next to where the stadium was being constructed to find out like what the team was telling people about like what the parking situation was going to be like and things like that. So it's super nerdy. We interviewed the head groundskeeper. We did 45 minutes on like the grass. Then we selected them for the stadium. So like now when we have like, oh, there's players in, players out, like a game review, a game preview, like it's a lot easier show to do and prepare for now than it was in the early days. And hopefully we've gotten a little bit better at it over time too.
That's fantastic. I mean, the only other thing I've seen like this is the St. Louis guys who had a massive fan base built up before there was a ball even kicked. And I know from reading your website, you were there before the first player was even signed. So that must be really, really exciting, seeing something from almost zero right through to the fruition of a team. What, 2 seasons in now?
3 seasons now.
3 now. Sorry, right. Good stuff. Of course,
yeah,
the end of one. Yeah. Sorry, Jeremiah, go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, we have kind of been around for the whole ride, up to the, I guess in 2017 when the announcement first came out that, gosh, there's this possibility this team from Columbus maybe will come to Austin. I ended up going to one of our local soccer bar the next week and kind of getting connected with the people eventually who became like really good friends of mine and really like leaders sort of in this movement to bring this team to town. And I love how it worked out that Columbus got to keep their own team and we got our own team and we got our own stadium and all that, but it's been a crazy ride. And Landon and I have talked. You could probably share more on this about just what we thought this might be, and then when we got to the first game, like what it actually turned out to be.
Yeah, I think we all had expectations, and like as we were going along, I don't know how much Tom, anybody in the UK would have heard about this at all, but Austin traditionally is known as like a university town where the University of Texas, their American football team is a big deal. Like college American football is a huge deal in the US. And so I think a lot like the image of Austin in most of the US was that's a college town and University of Texas football is too big for anything else to work there. Wow. And that was true 20 years ago. That was true 25 years ago. From the last 10 years on, that stopped being true. And I think a lot of people didn't realize that because Austin is one of the fastest growing cities in the country, like a very young demographic in town, a lot of younger transplants coming to move to either just a cool city or a city where there's a lot of like tech innovations and tech work. And so it's been like the demographic has changed quite a bit in the last 10 or 15 years, some for better, some for worse, but it has become a soccer town. Like if it wasn't before, it absolutely is now. And as we got closer to that date, there were people around the country saying, I don't think it's going to work in Austin. I don't think they're going to do very well. And as we got closer and closer, we started seeing kind of the groundswell here.
Yeah.
We're like, I think they're wrong. I think it is going to be really good here. And then a month later, no, I like know it's going to be good here. And so we kind of like raised our bar of expectations of what it was going to be whenever that first season finally started. And when it got there, it exceeded that even more so. And just like the amount of support, the amount of energy in that stadium, the amount of enthusiasm about this team, and the energy in the community around it has just been really, really amazing.
That is fantastic. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, what a start to it as well. I mean, like I said, I think it sounds like a place that was really ready for a soccer team and a young, sort of younger, vibrant community to go around it. That's absolutely fantastic. Jeremiah, you noted about that there's a link with Columbus there, that it may have been their team that was transplanted, and I think you share their ex-owner now. Is that right?
Correct. So it kind of worked out that the owner in the front office came to Austin, and the team stayed in Columbus under a new ownership group. And that announcement happened, I don't know, like a year or so after sort of the original, like, things are up in the air thing. So there's a lot of bad blood between like the Columbus fan base and the Austin fan base for a long time.
Yeah.
Particularly online, which I live my life perpetually online. And so some of that still exists today, because our second teams are MLS Next Pro, which is sort of the reserve teams, played each other in the final for that league over the weekend. And there was a little bit of sniping, but it feels like for the most part, everybody got what they wanted. Everybody's happy. That whole situation is over, and we can kind of move on and enjoy our own teams, our own experiences.
That's good. Yeah, and huge congratulations to Austin too on that one, because yeah, fantastic result for your guys. Bodes well for the future, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So. Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, we'll come on to rivalries in a moment as well. But give us both your origin stories. Landon, let's start with you. How did you get into soccer in the first place?
Oh man, yeah, I came to it late. I grew up in a really small town in the middle of nowhere in Texas, and American football is king there. And so I grew up in such a small town. It's like they need every kid to play every sport in order to have enough players on the team. So I grew up playing American football, baseball, basketball, ran track and field. I was in the marching band. I did academic competitions, and like people hear me say that and like, oh, you're like a real overachiever. It's like, no, this is just what you did there. But soccer was not. I like barely knew what it was until I was in like maybe middle school, and then didn't care about it until I was in university, and did a semester abroad in Spain. Decided like, okay, they really care about this game here. I'm going to learn about it. I don't know if I'll end up liking it, but I'm going to learn about it. And it was in Barcelona in 2010. And so the 2009-2010 Barca team, Leo Messi is like 22 years old. That squad, when they were fielding like 7 or 8 players in every 11 that were from La Masia. And I was like, oh, this sport is very cool. Just ended up watching that. And I didn't realize like this isn't what all soccer is like. Like this is something special. And I didn't realize that until years later, that what I was witnessing there was something pretty magical. But it made me fall in love with the game. And I'm one of those people who like get into something, I like get into it. And so spent the next 10 years just like obsessing about soccer and learning as much as I could about it. And MLS like lends itself to that type of personality and behavior because of all the weird rules. I just like eat that stuff up. Like I'll be a little disappointed if they ever make the rules simpler, just because I kind of enjoy learning about all the absurd rules and mechanisms.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. I did my video on the playoffs recently, and I didn't get my head around it until I'd written the whole script for it and then did a diagram to work out exactly what was going on. Jeremiah, what about you?
I had a pretty typical like American upbringing on on sports. So I played as a kid. I coached. I also grew up in a different small town in Texas, but a small town in North Texas, north of Dallas, Fort Worth. And at one point, when I was a senior in high school, like my 4 years of playing as a kid, maybe like the most qualified person to coach like our like youth soccer team, because that was all the soccer experience we had. So like coached a little bit and then drifted away for the game, but I've always been a huge sports fan. And so my oldest son was born in 2009, and like babies don't sleep, and so I would 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning here, Texas time, on Saturdays and Sundays, the Premier League would be on TV, and so I ended up consuming a lot of Premier League. And Steven Gerrard and Fernando Torres were like really, really killing it for Liverpool. And so that was my team that got me into the game, and then stayed connected mostly through Liverpool and national team stuff and thing like that. But what Austin FC really, and I've never watched MLS really, what Austin FC did is combine, like, I love this city. I've been here since I got out of high school, almost 30 years. Like I love this city and I love the game, and just the opportunity to sort of be a part of like bringing those two things together. is really what got me hardcore into Austin FC.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, absolutely. I can see that it's an infectious thing. I'm getting that sort of the vibe from it whenever I read about Austin. I get this feeling like it is a really sort of cult-like team with a very dedicated following. Unusually for me, I haven't got an Austin shirt yet. I'm building my collection, but Austin's one of the ones I haven't got yet. So I tried to wear the away shirt kind of color.
That's close.
And,
Close enough.
Really
yeah.
close. And I need to get I can put this on here up there. And then it looks kind of similar, right? Like a bootleg version of that. So, but I will get an Austin shirt, definitely. I like both of them from this season, actually. So, be it this season or next, I will definitely get one very, very soon. So, what made you guys want to come together and actually make content for this, even before the team was a thing? Is it because no one else was doing it? Is it just to sort of personify the excitement that was going on? What was the main driving factor?
Yeah, we got involved. Jeremiah mentioned those guys who were just like trying to create some excitement and get some type of organized fan group together really early on. And Jeremiah and I met through that. And they had a little show that they were doing like once a month, and it was very irregular and not super organized, but it was just like kind of the thing they were doing for fun. And as we both kind of joined in on that as kind of occasional hosts or rotating in and out. And then as Jeremiah and I joined it, it was also around the time when there was more news coming out, and it felt like there was a need for a more regular presence in that. And essentially Jeremiah and I were the ones who just like showed up to actually do it. And that's kind of how it's like a kind of a chance thing that the two of us ended up together. But from there, we just kind of like grew it and eventually stopped doing a show for the supporters group and made it just an independent show on our own, so that we could kind of have it a bit more independent and kind of control it a little bit more without having to run it through a committee all the time. But but yeah, I mean, it's really kind of a chance thing, like how the two of us specifically got it. But it was really just out of being around that early core group of fans and kind of having excitement about it. And then just trying to find a way where we could kind of get involved and add to the culture a little bit.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that was also like in having a vision for it, because that original show was also, we talk about the Swedish second division, and I mean, it was, when Landon says is a little bit all over the place, it's very all over the place, and we thought like there's a million people with podcasts talking about soccer, right? And we're not the experts in this, but we can be the people who know the most about Austin FC, right? And are able to talk about that. And so that having that vision to be really focused in on like this club, I think is the thing that allowed us to grow. And then also, starting early. So we had done 25 bad shows with no idea what we were doing before anybody else really cared. And we did things like talk about the grass, was also helpful, because then when this first season came around and people started caring, like we had a routine, like we were coming out every week and we have like a flow and, stuff like that. So just a lot of it's just the craft of just doing the same thing over and over and over again until you get good at it.
Fantastic. And like I say, if you've got the passion, then that carries you forward, doesn't it? And it's great. You share that passion with other people who then get more and more engaged because they're hearing more about it. And it's just this sort of beautiful, virtuous circle, isn't it, on that front? And I think, Jeremiah, you were obviously instrumental in setting up the Los Verdes fan group.
Yes. Yeah. That was part of, so I think with it, maybe this is just American fan culture, but that original group, at some point in time decided like we had two competing visions for what supporter culture should look like in Austin. So a group of us went and started Los Verdes about a year before the season started, in the middle of the pandemic, which, by the way, is a really weird way to build a supporters group, completely through Zoom and completely through Slack. And now there's, I think it may be up to 3,000 members now, but it was, our focus was really was going to be on the game day experience and sort of helping create this game day environment that you read a lot about and hear a lot about too, which is sort of this like South American Murga style, like carnival in the stands sort of vibe.
Yes. Yeah.
And we were really, really focused on that. And so that's where we built it from, and which in years like this year, where Austin's not very good, like it's still fun to go to the games and see your friends and sort of be a part of that, be a part of the fan culture, whether the results on the field are what you want them to be or not.
So what would be, sorry, Landon, what were you going to say there?
No, I was going to say just like the kind of thing that ended up attracting was like Austin. Again, I don't know how much of a reputation Austin, the city, has outside of the States at this point, but it's known as kind of like in the 60s and 70s, it was kind of like the hippie capital, like the place you moved when you're 25 to retire. And it's like Austin is a place where I this is another saying, Austin is a place where ambition goes to die. Where I don't think that's true anymore, but they had that reputation for a long time. It's still like a scene for arts and culture, and a place where you can come as you are and be welcomed in that way. And so that was something that I was super happy to see show up in the supporters group as well, and in the kind of the fan culture, is that I know so many people who are not soccer fans who just saw the cool stuff that these groups are doing in the community, the charity work, the volunteer work, the just like expression, like artistic and creative expression happening in the south end of the stands there, and saying, I don't care about soccer, but I want to be a part of that. Like, that looks cool. And just so many people who felt like they didn't have a community, didn't have family in town, didn't have a place to be, and have found that with this team and with this fan community. And that's been really, really cool to see.
That is fantastic. Actually, a few of the fan interviews I've done, there have been supporters groups which are really inclusive, and people have found a real community and home there. I think that's one of the absolutely extra special things about MLS, especially because it does tend to grow these groups organically, and it becomes a lot like what we have in the UK. It becomes more than just a football club that people go to. They go there for community. They go there for almost family and support, as well as just a shared, sort of culture as well.
Yeah, that has absolutely been true here. Like, we don't have the history or the culture that you do in England, but that community aspect of it has manifested very quickly here.
And I think that the one other thing I love about it is the players, because of the average salary of an MLS players compared to like top leagues in Europe, like they're normal people for the most part, right? And it's like the players have really embraced that. And we've been to, I don't know, a dozen fundraiser events that Brad Stuver's done, and it's like Brad and his wife, and they're interested in giving back to the community, and they're just, you run into players at the store or whatever, and they're just really like a part of it, and that makes you as a fan want to buy in more, because they're just like they're part of you and you're part of them, and you don't feel this sort of like two-tiered system with the players and the front office and everybody too, which has been really been rewarding also.
Yeah, you can really get that connection with people, and then you sort of relate to them as a person. You want to support them more than me supporting the Premier League players, or in my case Leeds fan, Championship players that on the pitch they're not going to hear my voice, they're not going to know me. I'm not going to know them other than what they do on the pitch and whatever they might say in an interview. But when it's a much more personal connection, it goes deeper, it means more.
Yeah, it really does.
That's very, very cool. So obviously the Las Vegas is one. There's another supporters group as well, right?
Well, there's sort of two formal ones. Austin Anthem was the original group that that Los Verdes was formed out of, and then there's just other people. There's a group called the Fighting Leslies, which we had a famous cross-dresser in Austin named Leslie Cochran through, I don't know, the 90s and 2000s, and they have a group that honors Leslie. There's Pollo, which is a rubber chicken that's wears an Austin FC jersey and ends up going to every game with somebody gets him to every game and ends up showing up in promo videos, and I think maybe celebrate with the MLS Next Pro trophy a couple days ago. But there's all these other, this Landon touched on this, like there's all these other like great ways to engage with the fans that are like creative and interesting and organic and really like special, and not something I ever expected that would come from like us getting a professional sports franchise.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that. It's just a complete array of different ones, and it's always a sort of a real heart and a lot of sense of humor in a lot of those as well, isn't there?
Yeah, I love some of these. The Pollo is like one of the best ones. This rubber chicken that Trevor and Jesse decided to paint black and green, and now the other day when Austin FC 2 won the final, the MLS, like the official MLS Twitter and Instagram accounts, tweeted out a video of one of the Austin FC 2 players holding the chicken. And it wasn't not just the team account, but like MLS retweeted it. And so it's like this stupid joke that just like a few friends thought was really funny is now like being shown to all of anybody paying attention to this league. And I think that's beautiful.
It's on a national scale, international scale, actually. Yeah, because I think I saw that picture too earlier on today. So that's the friendly side. That's the that's the Austin fans side. What about the rivalries? Because obviously, for a relatively new team, you mentioned there's something with Columbus there through a little bit of shared history or potentially shared history. But obviously, geographically, you've got a couple of very decent sized teams around you as well. How's that coming? Is it there already? Do you have some fierce rivalries there, or is it sort of growing? Or where are we with that?
Yeah, what do you think, Jeremiah?
I knew you were going to make me go first on this one. There is, I mean, it depends who you talk to. If you talk to Dallas and Houston fans, they still have like Austin's the new kid on the block, and they're the little brother, and it's not really a rival. It's not important, but they make sure like every single time somebody tweets or posts on Facebook or anything about something, they make sure and jump in and tell you that, which leads me to believe that there is a rivalry there. Yeah, that they do care. And there's a trophy that's shared from among the three teams called Copa Tejas, for which has the best results in the matches among them. I think just like in the stands wise, we had some really negative experiences in Houston the first year we went down there with a particular group of fans that got kind of dangerous. And I would say that rivalry is like, because of those things, it's become like pretty intense, more intense than the ones of the FC Dallas fans.
Wow, it's funny how those things turn out. Landon, what's your view on it?
No, I think it's absolutely like, regardless of what anyone in Houston or Dallas tell you, if all you're talking about is how it's not a rivalry, but you're still talking about this other team a lot, like it's and I think it was so. Dallas and Houston are very much like MLS 1.0 teams, and a lot of those teams have struggled for relevancy in their markets for various reasons. And I think it helped that Austin comes into the league big and loud and with so much energy, to kind of, I think in a way, I think that this would have happened with other various tides lifting all boats within MLS. I think these clubs would have stepped up their game anyway, but I think they felt some extra pressure with Austin making such a loud entrance into the league to say, these guys down the road are going to make us look foolish. We need to step up our game. And to their credit, they have. Dallas is a team who's had historically poor attendance, and they've had quite good attendance this year. Some good teams over the last couple of years. Houston has kind of shaken up their front office, brought in a bunch of new exciting players, still struggling attendance wise, I think, but their teams are good, and they did not have that for a long time. So I think it has the potential to be something really big and really cool in years future, with all three of these teams kind of pushing each other.
Absolutely. I think you got off to a really good start with the supporters there, because I think how big a club is definitely depends on the support. And if you've got really good visceral support and you make a noise and you make yourself heard, you're going to get noticed, and it's going to be more of a thing, when the clubs come together, regardless of whether you've made the playoffs or not.
Oh yeah.
So how has this season been for you guys? Obviously, you mentioned before it hasn't been a brilliant season for you, and obviously we are just at the end of the 34-game season at the moment as we record. So the playoffs are not something for this year. But yeah, how would you sum it up?
To be honest, Tom, it's been pretty brutal. Yeah, it's been rough, man. I think a lot of it had to do with, like, they say it's the hope that kills you, right? Like having such a good season last year. And in our season previews this year, we said like Austin FC could have a better season last year and be a better team and probably still finish like 4th or 5th, just because of kind of the way that things broke for them last year. And so we weren't expecting to finish 2nd or win the whole thing again, but we were like, yeah, 4th to 6th, that seems right for this team with the pieces that are coming back. And so because we had that hope and that expectation, and then it didn't happen, and then kept not happening and kept not happening, it just like hurt more and more every time.
And then, the other thing, like Tom, you mentioned, the playoff structure is so weird. So there's 9 teams are going to make the playoffs. So it's, you're almost never out of it, right? Up until I think the second to last game, there's still you don't even get to just like, okay, well, this year's over, throw it in the trash and start over again, because you're just like barely connected to the playoff line. And if things break kind of right, although they hadn't all year, but somehow maybe they were going to go on a run, like Austin would make it. And so in that way, it was like there's just a lot of angst, and it didn't help that the month break for the the competition with the league. What's that tournament called?
Leagues Cup.
Yeah, for Leagues Cup, where and then Austin bombed out early, and there were no games going on, and so it was just like we had nothing to do but sit around and get frustrated about how the season was going to finish. That's part of it too. It's just they were never quite in it and never quite out of it.
Yeah, no, I think actually just on the point that you said there, how it does extend the season. I think a lot of the argument on the pro rail side, we talked about it a lot with various fans on the channel, and I think one of the arguments is, and it's one of the ones that I've said before as well, is that you can get to 60-70% of the season and you've nothing left to play for, because you're not fighting to stay up and you're not fighting to to make it towards into MLS Cup. But I think this actually has done that, because even if you are 9 points away, if you've still got 10 games to go, it's still doable. So actually, it does become very late in the day that you actually give up hope, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think there's still probably too many teams getting into the playoffs, but just the parity in MLS does that, right? So there's Colorado finished second last year, and they were just like kind of like middle of the table dwellers for a lot of the season, just like slowly crept their way up, and then all of a sudden, or no, they won it. They won it a couple years ago, didn't they? But won the West. But yeah, there's so much movement, and like I think from like 3rd place to 10th place in the Western Conference was so close, like 5 or 6 points for a big stretch of the season. And so it really does make it to where, yeah, I think it has kind of that similar effect where it's like all these games are going to matter at some point and it's going to catch up to you. But yeah, on the bottom end, they're a team this year like Colorado or Toronto, who they knew not like pretty far back that this wasn't going to happen, and there's nothing to play for at that point, and it kind of season just kind of peters out at that point.
Yeah, I feel for them as well. I think embarrassingly, I think I did tip Toronto to do very well this season as well. Showing up for what I know, really, it's has shown that. But for Austin, where's it been lacking then? Obviously Drury's been the absolute standout. It's still a fantastic player. But where else? What has gone wrong effectively?
Well, I would say part of it is it feels like the whole team got hit with the age hammer all at the same time, because like the guys that were scoring goals last year, Juicy and Diego Fagundes and some of those creative players, just all seemed to slow down. Giassi Zardes was proven goal scorer, like one of the top 10 or 12 scorers in the history of the league, came in, but he seems to have lost a step. So it just seemed like the attack got kind of old and kind of slow real fast, and then the defensive shape has always kind of been chaotic, but last year they scored enough goals to make up for it.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of key locker room guys that one of them left just he's out of contract, an older guy, Felipe Martins, who left, didn't do that much on the field, but by all accounts was a good locker room presence. And then Ruben Gabrielson, a really strong center back for us, ended up leaving kind of unexpectedly for family reasons and going back to Norway. And that was a big hole in the defense as well. So I think it seemed to be just like a lot of things, like a confluence of several things all kind of meeting up at the same time to lead to what this season was. But we had some injuries as well, some guys missing for injuries or international duty or whatever it was. And so just nothing ever seemed to be hitting at the same time correctly for them.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I mean, I think Toronto would feel pretty much similar with things like the injuries, and I think if you lose 1 or 2 players, be it in transfers or injuries, it can make a massive difference, because because of the way that the structure happens and the caps on wages and what teams can spend. Your first team is more valuable, I think, to keep them all fit than it might be in other leagues. So I think that's 1 or 2 injuries can really shape your season, can't it?
Yeah, and with all the extra competitions this year as well, like
I
think that's really catching up, and that's the thing that you've heard several coaches and executives and players talk about this season, is that the roster rules need to change, and I think that really affected Austin as well, because they're playing in the CONCACAF Champions League and Leagues Cup and the U.S. Open Cup and the league play and trying to do all this stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
With an already kind of thin roster, and then your big guys aren't coming through anymore. You're missing some pieces you're expecting to be there. You have some guys injured. I think it just kind of compounds on itself after a while.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. So other than a bit more luck, what else? What do you guys need for next season? Is it a change in management? Is it wholesale changes, or is it just a defender here, a midfielder there? What do you think?
Well, we got a new sporting director, which it was Pep Guardiola's assistant coach, Rodolfo Borrell. So
Fantastic.
really good pedigree on the coaching
Yeah.
side, on a talent development side. He's never done this job before. So we'll see if he's can actually manage a team, but he's got like the eye and the experience as far as knowing what a good club should run like. So hopefully he can make some changes. He's come out and said Josh Wolf, the manager, will absolutely be back next year. So he probably survived a season most coaches wouldn't. But he has the backing of the sporting director there, so he's not going anywhere. I think now it's just going to be kind of revamping this roster as much as they can.
Yeah,
and a little bit handcuffed in certain ways with just certain contracts we have, the wages that certain guys are on. But yeah, I think at this point the only thing we can hope for is bringing in some better players eventually.
Yeah, he did fire the whole scouting department too. So there's
really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the move they made. That was sort of an acknowledgement that maybe the initial roster build wasn't all that great. But Austin does have several like MLS players who are at the end of the contract. There's going to be some flexibility within the league. Where he's really hamstrung is the ability to sort of reach into Europe or sign DPs or even spend a lot of Tammy and all these things that are specific to MLS. But yeah, I'd expect to see a decent amount of turnover like from within the league.
Good stuff. So yeah, you'd be looking at I think intra transfers. Is it defenders, midfielders? What are you after? Do you think?
All of the above. Yeah, I think defensively we need a piece or two, both at center back and probably I think we could upgrade at fullback. We have some players on the wing, like the line of three. That there's definitely some room for competition. And I think if we're going to bring in like a bigger name this window, it's going to be hopefully in that space where I think there is some room, and hopefully we'll see if there's actually some like salary budget space for it too. So
you're looking for a new DP in that, like a big name?
I don't know that we're going to have the space for a DP, so it's going to have to be a medium name.
Okay. Yeah, that can be possible. Miami have shown it doesn't have to be a DP. Good stuff. All right, and then we go back to the start. I think we'll wind down with some quick fire questions on here because you've given me a really good view of how things are. One of the things that intrigued me when I was thinking about Austin earlier on is the FC versus the SC. Do you have a view on which that should be? And obviously, football club in your name, whereas obviously that's not the term that you guys would normally use. Do you think that's a good move or a bad move?
Oh, I don't like the. I mean, I just generally think we should just go American and have a mascot. And like I think like the super boring European style names for a league that is very different. I don't love. So I mean, we would probably have picked a dumb one. I don't want to be like the Soccer-dillos or anything, but I don't have too strong of an opinion on FC versus SC, but I do like having a nickname. And because people come up with one anyhow.
Yeah.
Like people are always trying to give the team a nickname.
We haven't here yet, funnily enough, but like I think there's several people who have little nicknames that they've tried to make stick and none of them really have yet. So I was kind of into the like genericness of the FC tag where it's like, okay, the fans will get to decide what we call this team, how we refer to them, like, and kind of what the identity is will show itself over time. But I also agree, like now that there've been so many teams announced that are just City FC, that it starts to feel a little bit samey in MLS and like in a league where, I don't know, these are just brand new teams. And like, yeah, maybe we should take a chance and do something a bit more fun. But I was worried they were going to pick a mascot name and it would be terrible.
Yeah, and that has to be organic, doesn't it? That
I was okay with the generic name in exchange for not getting stuck with the terrible mascot name.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think Austin FC makes it iconic as well. It makes it unequivocally Austin, whereas you could talk about some of your neighbors as Dynamo, and people who weren't that familiar wouldn't know what that was necessarily, or which city that was corresponding to, I think. But yeah, you're right. You can't force something. I think it really shows the ones that they've tried to cultivate. And then the ones that are brilliant are like Nashville with the Coyote which was found in, you know, in a toilet there. You know, that's just, so you just think that's a brilliant story. That, of course, that's your mascot, and Tempo was born, you know, from that story. But yeah, you need that organically to happen, because it makes so much more difference, I think.
I am quite pleased with the branding of the club, though, with the tree motif. I think that's really good. I know a lot of people outside of Texas didn't get it, and we're like, what is, like, I feel like it should be a more Texan thing. It's like, well, that's kind of the thing about Austin, is that it's not really Texas, and it's quite different from the rest of the state. And so if it was a big star or like a Western thing or like something like that, it wouldn't feel like Austin. And Austin is, like, I know a lot of people in Europe think that Texas is all just one big desert, but Austin is a very green, tree-filled city with like a river that runs through the middle of the city, and some like creeks and springs and swimming holes and stuff like that. And so I think the green and that specific tree, the live oak tree, is a thing that's very emblematic of the city for people who live here. And so I was very pleased with that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing as well. I mean, yeah, it is all about oaks and you know, that sort of nature thing there. I think that's Austin's always been one of the places I've really wanted to go and visit. I think because of that landscape, and also, like you mentioned earlier on, Landon, the sort of arts and culture stuff that's there. It just seems like a fascinating place to be.
It's a fun city for sure. So let us know if you ever make it this way.
I shall do, absolutely. I'd love to take in a game up there. Definitely. So let's go into one of the questions that always comes back to me: Supporters Shield or MLS Cup?
I like the Supporter Shield. I think that is a more representative achievement, as to say, like, who is the best team in this league. I think the Supporter Shield, just like the rest of the world does it, like, you win, you're the best team throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
And you should get rewarded for that. The playoffs are fun, though, man. Like,
oh yeah,
they're undeniably fun. And so, like, winning MLS Cup would be a thrill. But I think as far as like what's representative of who's the best team, the Shield.
Yeah, I will agree with that it's more genuine. But if Austin wins the MLS Cup, I'm going to pretend like we never had this conversation. And I think MLS Cup is absolutely the most important thing in the world.
I'm going to go back and edit it. If this happens, I'll let you know.
Okay, good.
That is fantastic. And just before we finish off, a question for both of you as well. And obviously, we've had 3 seasons now of Austin. Who's been your favorite player so far?
I don't want to steal yours, Jeremiah, but it has to be Brad Stuver. Like, he's one of the guys who off the field has done so much for the community, spends so much time and energy, like way more than he would have to, even to just get attention for it. Like, you can go kiss a baby and do a ribbon cutting or whatever and get some good press. Brad Stuver goes above and beyond that stuff and is on multiple boards for charitable organizations. Wow. Spends a lot of his free time doing stuff to help other people have a better life. And you combine that with just him being a cool guy and being a really good goalkeeper, like, he's hard not to pick.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna have to think of somebody else, though. But and I have a giant 14-year-old son that he likes and recognizes at places. So, like, I appreciate that, like, that family connection too. Awesome. And he was the first player we ever got to interview, and it's because we thought he wasn't going to be the starting keeper, and we're like, well, surely the team will give us the backup. Like, nobody cares if the backup keeper, like, comes on a podcast that nobody listens to. And then, as it turns out, like, he had to be in the starter. So we have an annual tradition where we have him on every year. So I'd say outside of him, I'll go with John Gallagher because, you know, he kind of bounced around and played at a lot of different places, and, you know, came in Austin without this like huge pedigree, but is really like found his own and was an all-star this year, and sort of just an example of the importance of grit and determination and just working hard and never giving up. And, you know, he agreed to change positions, you know, to become a defender. And I don't think he really loved it, but he also wanted to keep playing professional soccer. And so he knew that was like thing he was going to do. And the way that he's worked on his game, I think, is really impressive too. And we also interviewed him too. And he was a nice guy.
That's fantastic. That's really got all the qualities you need on actually both those answers. Yeah, people that are really hard not to like. It's absolutely fantastic. Guys, just all that remains for me to do is ask you, where can people find you?
All of the links at moontowersoccer.com. We've got all of our show links posted there, show notes. We've got the link to Twitter is probably the most active spot, and then we post some of our interviews to our YouTube page. But yeah, I'd say moontowersoccer.com and then at MoonTower Soccer on Twitter are probably the most active spots.
Fantastic.
And you can find us on our individual accounts too. Landon's LVAero87, and I'm JBentley_ATX. So mostly soccer talk. I don't know. We get a little. I get into a little bit of local politics and stuff like that too, but it's mostly just like, again, hanging out with fans online and sort of enjoying the community.
That sounds absolutely perfect. I'll put all those details in the description as well. So anyone watching, you can just find them down below as well. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Tom. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom.
Cheers. Best of luck. We'll see you next time.